Hello, Levitical Kingdom Privateers. On September the 12th and 13th, we are hosting the first annual Holy Nation of the Ecclesia Conference. The theme is Threshold Covenant, with great worship brought to us by the Woodcock Singers, a great MC known as Plain Flyer 21, speakers like Dr. Mike Spalding, Jim Odell, Randy Conway, C2K Rick, and our keynote speaker, the world-renowned Vicky Joy Anderson. And don't miss a very special and world-altering Friday night event that will equip you for what is coming. Admission is free for our naturalized families and very affordable for our guests. Head over to c2kreport.com and scroll down on the homepage to find our link to purchase tickets for your friends and family. And remember, it's all about the blood.
Man, you are fighting for your life in these comments to prove that Jesus was white. I wonder why. So first of all, tan is a shade of brown. But also, since you brought up the distinction, let's discuss it. There's a difference between Hebrew, Israelite, and Jew. Hebrew refers to the oldest group of descendants of Abraham who spoke the Hebrew language using the Hebrew alphabet, which is what the Torah was originally written in. Israelite more narrowly refers to the descendants of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel after he wrestled with God, became the 12 tribes of Israel and the nation state of Israel. So then, after Babylonian exile, the kingdom of Judah was the last to fall, and so then they were referred to as the Jews, which is why we see in Esther they're referred to as Jews, because that takes place during Babylonian exile under Ahasuerus, even though Esther may have been written as late as the Hellenistic period after the death of Alexander the Great. Not the point. So Jesus would have been a first millennium Jew, and we have a lot of study between archaeology, art, and descriptions of what they may have looked like. And the closest that we can come to is our modern day Iraqi Jew. This coarse brown hair, brown eyes, this beautiful olive skin, broad, wide noses, and fun fact, Jesus would have been between 5'5" and 5'6" because we love a short king. So this whiteness associated with Christianity, not surprisingly, came from Europe, both in art forms, Da Vinci's very famous painting with a fun backstory, and Michelangelo's depiction of Christ, but also because Christians in Europe wanted to be able to justify colonialization. So they began to associate Christianity with European descent and whiteness with purity. So therefore, it was not only their divine right, but their duty to colonize, subjugate, and exterminate pagan brown people. There also became this idea about hereditary heathenism, that your religion was also inherited through your race, through your lineage, through your parents. And so anyone who was black or brown was by default a pagan and then had to be forcefully converted. Obviously, Aryan Jesus got a big boost in World War II in Germany for obvious reasons, but it's really about justifying white power and this idea of white is right. We also know that you get this particular shade of vampire when your ancestors come from countries that don't have a lot of sun, and your body needs to be able to absorb as much vitamin D as it can. I don't know if you've been to this region. Lots of sun. Very hot. Not good for someone like me if SPF 1000 is not available. For obvious reasons, after World War II, open anti-Semitism, not quite as popular, so there were some changes that white-presenting Jews who were included in white ranks in the military were able to qualify for the GI Bill and those benefits, while black soldiers were not. So white Christians' commitment to white Jesus is really their commitment to their own image, to worshiping a God made in their own image, and their commitment to white supremacy. Jesus was brown, and you're either on board with that or you're wrong. Have the day you deserve.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another Privateers Volley, and I'm Rick Hidalgo, your host. Today, was Jesus white? Does it matter if he was brown, black, white, purple, pink, blue, yellow, or maybe he was all of those things in one? Maybe color of your skin, your pigmentation, is actually a little bit of everything. You know, this fast-talking lady, first of all, she hates white men. Okay, well, you know I look in the mirror, I look white, but I come from a Cuban heritage, so I don't really know what I am, but it doesn't really matter because what I am is what I do. If I go out and I do stupid things, I'm stupid. If I go out and I act righteously, then I'm among the righteous. If I go out there and start blabbing my mouth and accusing people of white supremacism and saying that there was a boost during World War II and of Aryanism and so on and all. You know what? I can go on all day talking about historical things, and I could try to make some things go. But let's talk about a couple things here that she specifically said. She talks about the difference between Hebrews, Israelites, and Jews. Interestingly enough, I'm going to agree with her on some of that stuff. I'm going to. However, you cannot say that an Israelite is not a Hebrew, because Israelites were indeed Hebrews. Hebrews are from the family of Eber. So those who came from Eber became Hebrews. Okay, so Abraham was one of the obviously patriarchs of the Hebrews. Okay, but there were more. There were many. There were lines that came from Eber. So we can't really specifically say that Abraham and his descendancy are the only Hebrews, but his descendancy, in fact, were Hebrews. So that's number one. Number two, yes, Israel and Jacob, who became Israel, had, 12 sons. Of course, one son had two sons, so he had two grandchildren of Joseph, who replaced Joseph and became two other tribes. So there's 13 tribes, not just 12. But the whole point is that, yes, Hebrews are not necessarily Israelites, but Israelites are indeed Hebrews. And the concept of the J word that I call Talmudist is indeed connected to Judah or Judea. Yes, so she was correct about that stuff, and I totally get that. And I'll give her that credit where credit's due, because there's not a whole lot of credit I can give her here. She ran her mouth about all kinds of things and made all kinds of enemies by the things that she said, very unrighteously and extremely simpleton history knowledge. I don't know what else to say about that. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to be right. She said that studies, and when people say studies, they mean science. So when a scientific study is done and says that the most probable skin color that Jesus had would have been this wide-nosed, olive-skinned individual, coarse hair, I think is what she said. Great. I have no problem what he looks like, what kind of color hair he has, what kind of hair he has, what color skin he has. When Jesus comes, to face me face to face, and I am there face to face with the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. I don't care what he looks like. He could look like Hulk Hogan. He could look like Gorilla Monsoon. It doesn't matter what he looks like. At the end of the day, he's the king, and it doesn't really matter. So the skin color thing is kind of a weak thing. I don't know why she's debating this. Then she went on to say that, and by the way, can I just say something? If science says it, question it. Okay? If science says it, question it, because don't have to go any further than that. So, Jesus, 5'5" or 5'6", because we love a short king, she said. What? Was Jesus, during his ministry, was he considered a king? And what was this 5'5", 5'6" thing? Just because people love short kings? And is that a thing? Wasn't Saul a tall king? And where are we going with this? I don't get that. Because we love short kings, Jesus had to be 5'5" or 5'6"? What? That logic is so far out there that I want to take my powdered wig and put it on. Okay? It's out there. All right? So, anyway, you didn't know I had a powdered wig, did you? Well, now you do. Whiteness is associated with Christianity. let's see. Let's talk about that. So the Ethiopian eunuch that. Okay, wait, no, he wasn't white. Let's see. A lot of the people who associated themselves with, like Nicodemus and the. Wait a minute. Okay, they would have been brown or olive-skinned people because of where they lived. It would have affected their pigmentation. Wait a minute. Wait, so Christianity is not associated with whiteness whatsoever. It's associated with every shade of skin all the way across the entire earth. Yes, because Christianity was spread everywhere. Yeah, so there's black Christians, white Christians, green Christians, maybe on Mars, I don't know. I'm just kidding. So there's every color shade of Christian, and whiteness is definitely not associated with Christianity. And the idea that there was some kind of a conspiracy in Europe to identify Christianity as white, then why would you witness to brown people to get them to convert to Christianity? Would that not be like an exclusive religion at that point? It doesn't make any sense why we would have that dividing line. But anyway, whatever you say, lady. Let's see, the purpose of all this whiteness in Christianity is to justify colonialism. Colonialism. Okay, so when people, not all white, by the way, colonized a nation or colonized a region, they were bringing a higher development, higher IQ, higher standard of living to a place that needed an upgrade. If it were the other way around, it would not have been colonialization, it would have been assimilation. If somebody had this great, awesome civilization, and these people floated over the ocean, came over and said, okay, we're going to no, we're not going to colonize, we're going to join these guys. Look at these look at this civilization, it's amazing. We don't need to colonize. They're better than we are. I mean, come on, guys. What is the problem with the concept of colonization? That's how you upgrade a people. You don't have to necessarily kill them. And by the way, what was happening in the Old Testament was not colonization. Nope. When God told people to take out an entire tribe, it's because they were corrupted. They were corrupted by Nephilim genes and Nephilim religions and mystery Babylon. They were corrupted. There's a reason why God said, take out every man, child, every woman, and on the occasions where He said, take the women for yourselves. There was a reason for that too, and we won't go into that here, but we may have another video coming up where we do. So, stop talking about colonization as some kind of a horrible thing. Just stop. Because it's not always associated with death and suffering. Okay? It's actually associated with upgrading civilization. That's what it's associated with. Now, disease coming in from other places and wiping out people, that happens. But that's not because they intended for it to happen. Okay? That wasn't a war. That was a disease. That was an outbreak. So, okay. We will do more stuff on colonization at some other point and talk about other issues attached to it. But this lady is off her rocker. She's off her rocker in so many ways. She hates white people so intensely that she makes up stuff, even to the point of saying that white Christians wanted to exterminate, this is her words, exterminate pagan brown people. First of all, that's assumptive to say that all brown people were pagan. And it seems like you just talked about how a certain region would have had brown people, and that's where Christianity started. Hello? So, what are we doing here? You're double speaking. And then, World War II, there was a boost that justified white power. Well, we have talked about World War II so many times on Privateers Volley, and that there was so much going on in World War II that we are completely not allowed to see or know about. There is a narrative that is completely made for television, and there is a narrative that is completely hidden from our view. If you want to find it, good luck. You will not be able to Google it because Google has been completely assimilated to the official narrative. Okay, and whenever you see something completely assimilated to an official narrative, that tells you there was a cleanup job, because nothing is ever completely 100% one-sided. Nothing. Nothing. Ever. Okay? So, you look that up, lady. I'm sorry, but that was nuts that you said that. White Jesus equals commitment to white supremacy. Really? White Jesus is just how they depicted Jesus. I don't know. They certainly had a reason to believe what they believed and to paint it the way they did. And maybe there was a degree of, hey, we want him to look like us. Okay. Great, whatever. You know what I've seen online? I've seen black Jesus. I've seen black Adam and Eve. I've seen black Noah. I've seen all kinds of things. So everybody depicts it in a completely different way, but does it matter is the question. It doesn't. This is not about white supremacy. This is not about supremacy of any kind, shape, or form. This is about Christianity trying to define it, trying to picture it, and if you picture it in any particular way, someone's going to debate it. So just picture it. Just put it out there and let people debate it, because, you know, we're a society that's so full of ourselves and so full of seeing things from our own perspective that we cannot bend. We cannot pause for a second and say, maybe it's right. Maybe he was brown. Oh, maybe he did have coarse hair. Oh, maybe he did. You know. Oh, maybe he was that. Maybe he was 5'5" or 5'6". Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? So, summary. This lady, I've seen her on several videos, and she is always railing against white men. So, obviously, she's going to rail against the white Jesus. And obviously, she's going to rail against the things that were narratized as happening in World War II. And obviously, she's just going to rail against Europe. Because, well, let's face it, pretty white. So, with that said, that's all I got. It doesn't matter. I serve Jesus no matter what. He is my king, and he is my friend. He is my eldest brother, says the scripture. This has been another Privateers Volley. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I'm sorry. I can't bat 1,000%. But everything we do here at the C2K Report is all about the blood. See you next time.